Good morning, everyone. I'm Jonathan alongside Ashley here. We want to get started with today's news right away here on This Is Now. You know, the Big Island has it has 5 cases. That's one of the least impacted population areas around the state, and we have a lot of updates to get to regarding that.
Right, so while the mayors of Kauai, Oahu, and Maui, they took drastic action, Mayor Harry Kim has seemed slower to respond. He took some heat at a council meeting last week because of that. Our Mahealani Richardson just did an interview with him, and we want to start our coverage with that. Let's take a listen.
I wanted to ask you, you know, there is so much confusion right now, especially on Hawaii County, given the statewide stay-at-home order. So what's the situation like right now in Hawaii County over what's open, what's closed, and who's essential and who's not essential?
Well, basically, I think the confusion is not there, really, because we are following the governor's directives in regards to what is essential and not. The confusion comes, I think, and will continue for maybe a couple of days until we sort out what is essential and not essential and people get the word for it. But for the most part, I think by today, most of it has been cleared out.
So your legal department is going through the governor's stay-at-home order and you're looking for interpretations. What sort of exemptions are you hoping for?
Well, it's not exemptions, but initially, you know, when the governor was talking about it, seemed like the previous one in regards to all restaurants closed, and you know, we asked for flexibility on that because a lot of our resorts, hotels, that's where the tourists that registered there would eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I think, you know, some parts of the island, I won't mention in particular hotels, but you know, where would they go to eat? There was a problem posted, and the flexibility was given to all that, you know, it's basically try to comply with the distancing and the crowds and all of that. And that was very easily done because the governor just made it basically a drive-throughs and pickup. And on hotels and restaurants, there was combination that was optional, and resorts kept to feeding their guests, and it worked out quite well.
There has been much criticism that the county and you as mayor have not been stringent enough given this public health emergency. What is your response to that?
Yeah, I've heard that, and you know, I guess it's because initially, you know, I did question, but I think if you talk to the governor, we never had a problem. Because what was, I think, misinterpreted, I think was simply because I asked for flexibility. And I think if you look at certain records, like this last one, we made it quite clear that we will comply with the governor's instructions and orders for closure or what had to be closed. And certain things we needed clarification. Again, I use the word flexibility because you know, I felt that on the beaches, I need clarification on whose beaches was going to be within whose jurisdiction. So somehow when you question and ask for things, it's interpreted as you're against. And I don't think you'll have anyone in the state said that we were against anything. But to me, that was a minor thing, and there never was a real problem by anyone on that.
Mayor, I have to ask you, and it is an uncomfortable question, but you are 80 years old, you've got kupuna status, and you do have underlying health issues from the past, so why aren't you working at home as you are the #1 essential worker for Hawaii County?
Yeah, that is, you know, people point that out to me many, many times, that I am 80 years old, that I've had more than one health issue, heart being one of them. First of all, I would never jeopardize family or workers if I thought, you know, I was a threat to them in regards to the virus or anything else. But I think if you question any of the workers here, I feel very good. Matter of fact, my day started just after 2 this morning and will end late. I won't push myself because I promised family I'll take care of myself. But that's #1. I would never have a physical distance from people that would endanger them Number two, if I had any kind of idea that I was not well and I was carrying the disease, I would have myself tested. And maybe I should just for precaution, but we are testing only as I have symptoms, and the only symptom I have is a dry throat from talking too much.
Mayor Harry Kim, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and it's great seeing you on live stream.
All right, and starting today, all passengers coming to Hawaii, that means visitors and residents, on international and domestic flights are required to undergo a 14-day quarantine. Now, it starts with passengers filling out the standard agricultural form. Once they get off the plane, agents will then check to see that the form is completed and that their IDs match up. Then the passengers must go to their designated quarantine location, like hotel rooms for visitors or their homes for Hawaii residents. State officials did not say if they are allowed to take taxis or to use rideshare services. Those in quarantine can only leave for medical emergencies or to get medical care. They will have to depend on room service or deliveries for food. Now, those who violate the quarantine rule can be fined up to $5,000 and get 1 year in jail. And the statewide total for coronavirus cases here in Hawaii stands at 95, but that number could change today. By county, there have been 68 cases on Oahu, 13 on Maui, and 5 each on Kauai and the Big Island. There are also 4 cases still pending.
All right, we want to take you to a live video feed we have coming into our digital center from Washington, D.C. This is the White House, gearing up for the daily media briefing from the task force. We're going to dip into that live if it happens during this newscast. If not, we'll start up a separate stream and bring you what the president, vice president, and others have to say there. But we do know the president in his administration is revising social distancing guidelines and will classify the counties as high, medium, or low risk.
It comes as the death toll from coronavirus in the U.S. climbs to more than 1,000. There are more than 75,000 cases. Louisiana and Massachusetts are both reporting large surges, but the epicenter remains New York, which has about half of the total cases nationwide. Here's Tom Hansen.
The growing number of coronavirus cases in New York City is overwhelming hospitals.
People come in, they get intubated, they die, the cycle repeats.
Elmhurst Hospital in Queens had 13 deaths in just 24 hours.
I don't have the support that I need and even just the materials that I need physically to take care of my patients.
Dr. Colleen Smith gave the New York Times a look inside Elmhurst's emergency room.
All the patients in this room, all the feet that you see, they all have COVID.
Today is kind of getting worse and worse. We had to get a refrigerated truck to store the bodies of patients who are dying.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo says the state is working to increase hospital capacity here in hard-hit New York City.
Our goal is to have a 1,000 plus overflow facility in each of the boroughs.
In nearby New Jersey, medical workers in protective gear evacuated nearly 80 people living at a nursing home after 11 inside the building tested positive for the virus. In Massachusetts, more than 100 employees at 3 Boston hospitals have tested positive for COVID-19. And in Louisiana, officials estimate New Orleans could run out of ventilators by the first week in April.
We have never dealt with this number of sick people.
Doctors believe the city's annual Mardi Gras celebration helped accelerate the virus's spread. Tom Hansen, CBS News, New York.
And back here at home, we're getting a more thorough explanation about the State Department of Health's mistake on what they initially said was Hawaii's first death tied to COVID-19. A statement says the lab results were misread, and the announcement was later corrected. Health officials say the results weren't double-checked and that the lab was not told they were testing a sample from a patient who died.
That was unfortunate. It was essentially a clerical error. We reported it immediately as a positive, not having a chance to go back and reconcile the information. My apologies to those family members and others who may have experienced some anxiety unnecessarily.
The health department says it has implemented another layer of review to prevent any more errors.
All right, some sad economic news. Over the last week, the state has lost more than 15,000 visitors. With more economic impact, let's turn over to Lacey Denise. She filed this report just a short time ago.
Officials say there was an 87% drop in airline travelers this week, and that compared to numbers from the same time last year. The Hawaii Tourism Authority said just over 4,100 travelers, both visitors and residents, arrived in the state by air on Tuesday. 3,300 of those arrivals were on Oahu, 399 on Maui, 360 on Hawaii Island, and just 38 on Kauai. Just a week ago, nearly 20,500 travelers arrived in the state. Numbers are expected to continue to decline as the governor is urging visitors to stay away from the islands as we work through the coronavirus pandemic, and a mandatory 14-day quarantine for incoming travelers are now in effect statewide.
Meanwhile, stocks are surging again on Wall Street as a massive coronavirus relief bill gets closer to passing Congress. Major indexes jumped more than 6%. Still, the pandemic has shuttered all kinds of businesses and led to massive layoffs. That left workers with no option but to file for unemployment. Here's Natalie Brand.
Ford's Fish Shack is still offering takeout at its Northern Virginia restaurants and food truck, but with the dining rooms closed, Tony Stafford has seen a 90% drop in business and had to lay off around 140 employees.
I look them in the eye, sit down with them, and I don't know to tell them 3 weeks, 3 months, when it's going to be over.
It's a lot of stress. Among those waiting for that answer, bartender Raquel Velez-Vezaga.
The uncertainty of not knowing what to expect.
The Department of Labor says nearly 3.3 million people filed for initial unemployment benefits last week. That's up 3 million from the week before and shatters the previous record of 695,000 claims in 1982. The $2 trillion economic stimulus deal negotiated by the White House and lawmakers will give unemployed workers an extra $600 per week for up to 4 months on top of state benefits. But the surge in claims is overwhelming many unemployment agencies.
Workers who find themselves unemployed should document.
Michelle Evermore is with the National Employment Law Project. She says it usually takes 2 to 3 weeks for claims to be processed and payments made. But with the massive spike in unemployment, there could be delays.
Keep whatever they've gotten from their employer about the circumstances of their unemployment and print as many pay stubs as they possibly can.
Right now, employees at Ford's Fish Shack, including server Jean Lee, can get a free meal at the restaurant every day.
I try to remain optimistic because if I wasn't optimistic, I might sit at home and cry.
She's just waiting to go back to the job she loves. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Washington.
All right, we need to get you over to the White House. The president is speaking right now regarding the coronavirus.
Next year, 2021. President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador of Mexico. I want to thank the President of Mexico for having done such a great job with respect to the military. We have 27,000 Mexican soldiers on our southern border, and very few people are getting through, I can tell you that. We got to keep it that way. And we have a great relationship with Mexico now. President Putin of Russia, King Salman of Saudi Arabia, President Ramaphosa of South Africa, President Moon of, as you know, a country that we spend a lot of time in, South Korea. We're working very hard on that. Prime Minister Sanchez of Spain, President Erdogan of Turkey, Prime Minister Boris Johnson of the United Kingdom, President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Council, Charles Michel, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, World Health Organization Director Tedros Adhanom, World Bank President David Malpass, and the International Monetary Fund Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva. So that's a big group, but it's a great group. It's and they were all there, every one of them, and we talked about the problem, and hopefully it won't be a problem for too much longer. The United States is working with our friends and partners around the world to stop the spread of the virus and coordinate our efforts. We discussed how vitally important it is for all of our nations to immediately share information and data, and we've been doing that to a large extent, but we'll do it even more so, and to inform our, I guess you could say, inform each of us on the fight that we've got going one way or the other. It's a little bit different, but we're handling it a little bit in different ways. But there is great uniformity, I think. It was a terrific meeting, tremendous spirit among all of those countries. You had 20 countries plus the other people that I mentioned, and tremendous spirit to get this over with. After the meeting with the world leaders, I spoke with the governors of our 50 states and territories. Our team has been in constant communication with the governors, and we had a terrific meeting. Somebody in the fake news said that one of the governors said, "Oh, we need Tom Brady." I said, "Yeah." He meant that in a positive way. He said, "We need Tom Brady. We're going to do great." And he meant it very positively, but they took it differently. They think Tom Brady should be leading the effort. That's only fake news, and I like Tom Brady. Spoke to him the other day. He's a great guy. But I wish the news could be real. I wish it could be honest. I wish it weren't corrupt. But so much of it is. It's so sad to see. Just so sad to see. We had a great meeting. I tell you what, I'm sure you have tapes of the meeting. I'm sure that you were able to get tapes very easily. So you had 50 governors plus. And if you had tapes, you'd see it was really, there was no contention. I would say virtually none. I would say maybe one person, there was a little tiny bit of a raising of a voice, a little wise guy, a little bit. But he's usually a big wise guy, not so much anymore. We saw to it that he wouldn't be so much anymore. But he is, I would rate Mike was there. A lot of the folks in the back were there. And it was a great meeting. Took place at about 12 o'clock. So we went from the G20 to the governors. We also spoke about the economic relief with the governors and the package that we're moving through Congress to deliver much-needed financial assistance to hardworking families and small businesses. I want to thank Democrats and Republicans in the Senate for unanimously passing the largest financial relief package in American history, 96-0, and I have to say it's the largest by far. And I'm profoundly grateful that both parties came together to provide relief for American workers and families in this hour of need. The House of Representatives must now pass this bill, hopefully without delay. I think it's got tremendous support. When you're at 96-0, and as you know, a couple of those people are quarantined, and one, Rand Paul, he's actually got it. But he'll be better. He's been a great guy. He's been a great friend of mine, actually. The massive $2.2 trillion relief package includes job retention loans for small businesses with loan forgiveness available for businesses that keep their workers on the payroll. It's pretty good. Loan forgiveness. Keep the workers on the payroll. It's pretty good. Direct cash payments will be available to American citizens earning less than $99,000 per year, $3,400 for the typical family of four. Expanded unemployment benefits. The average worker who has lost his or her job will receive 100% of their salary for up to 4 full months. These are things that, by the way, we have plenty more to go, but they're things that nobody's ever had any package like this done. And I just want to thank them. Hopefully it'll get approved equally easily in the House, really. I think it will go through pretty well from what I hear. Virtually everybody. There could be one vote, one grandstander maybe. You might have one grandstander. And for that, we'll have to come back and take a little more time, and it'll pass. It'll just take a little longer. But let's see whether or not we have a grandstander. Critical support for the hardest hit industries with a ban on corporate stock buybacks and tough new safeguards to prevent executive compensation abuse. Over $100 billion for our amazing doctors, nurses, and hospitals. $45 billion for the Disaster Relief Fund, more than doubling the amount available. This is tremendous stuff. $27 billion for the coronavirus response, including $16 billion to build up the strategic national stockpile with critical supplies, including masks, respirators, and all sorts of pharmaceuticals. $3.5 billion to expand assistance to child care providers and child care benefits to healthcare workers, first responders, and others on the front lines of the crisis. And these are really brave, incredible people, I have to say. And some of them are getting sick, and some of them are getting very sick, and some of them don't even recover. They're incredible people. $1 billion for Defense Production Act procurement. We are, as you know, using the act, but we use it only when necessary. We use it as leverage. We generally don't have to use it to accomplish what we want to accomplish. As of today, FEMA has shipped over 9 million N95 masks, 20 million face masks, 3.1 million face shields, nearly 6,000 ventilators, 2.6 million gowns, 14.6 million gloves, and we're sending more every day, and we've got tremendous amounts of equipment coming in. A lot of great companies are making equipment right now. The ventilators, obviously, they take a little longer to make, but we have a lot of companies making them, and we're going to be in great shape. We took over an empty shelf. We took over a very depleted place in a lot of ways. As you know, the testing is going very, very well, and that was obsolete and broken, and we fixed it, and it's been going really good. And I think, very importantly, the stockpile, we're really filling it up, and we fill it up rapidly, but we get it out. Sometimes we have it sent directly to the states instead. And again, the state has to be doing this kind of a thing also. We're sort of a we look from behind a little bit, and we look at how are they doing, and if they need help, we do it. But it's their first responsibility. Sometimes they just can't get it. But we load it up and we send it out. But if we can, we have it sent directly to the state. We want it to go directly to the point where we want it. I can now announce something that I think is incredible, what they've done in the Navy, because the incredible naval hospital ship, the USNS Comfort, which is incredible, actually, when you see it inside, will be underway to New York City on Saturday. So it's going to be leaving on Saturday rather than 3 weeks from now. They did the maintenance quickly, and it was going to be there for quite a while longer, another 3 or 4 weeks, and it should be arriving. I told the governor 20 minutes ago, Governor Cuomo, that the ship will be arriving at New York Harbor on Monday. I think I'm going to go out and I'll kiss it goodbye. I'll go to, it's in Virginia, as you know, and I will go and we'll be waving together because I suspect the media will be following. John, are you going to be following? Maybe. You never know, huh?
It's a very important vessel.
Great ship. It's a great vessel, is right. So if you want to go, I'll see you there, and if you don't, that's okay. After being fully loaded with medical supplies, it's loaded up to the top, and it's over at the Norfolk Naval Base. That's where it departs. It is expected then to, we're saving about 3 to 4 weeks by the incredible work done by the Navy. And I actually look forward to Saturday to see it go. The ship will arrive, and I believe it's going to get a little bit of a ceremony. There's something very beautiful about it. It's an incredible piece of work. Going to be landing at Pier 90 in Manhattan to provide hospital surge capacity for the New York metropolitan area. So it's a surge capacity. They may use it for this, or they may have other people coming in from hospitals unrelated to the virus, and then they'll use those hospitals on land. They'll use those hospitals for the virus, but we'll see how they do it. They could do it either way, one way or the other, whichever one is best. But it could be, because it's set up so well for a regular hospital, that they may take people out of hospitals and then use those rooms for the virus. The National Institute of Health and the private sector, working closely with the FDA, continue to collaborate to discover and test treatments and therapies that can effectively reduce the duration and symptoms of the virus and very much help people to recover. And I'm firmly committed to bringing these treatments to market very quickly. We have a lot of tests going on with regard to different medicines, and I hope we get lucky. I hope we hit. A lot of talented scientists and doctors are working on therapeutics, a cure, vaccines. I think we're doing very well. Tony may speak to that a little bit later, but I think we're doing very well with regard to the vaccines. I think we're doing well with regard to a lot of the things I just mentioned, but we'll have to see what happens. We're going to know fairly soon about a lot of them. But it's very advanced, and the vaccines are very advanced prior to, as you know, a fairly reasonably long test period of, in that case, over a year. Every American should be proud of the incredible spirit our country has brought to this effort. It's been incredible. Citizens from all walks of life have come together to turn the tide in this battle. We're witnessing the extraordinary power of American unity like a lot of people have never seen. Even getting a vote. You're talking about trillions of dollars and you get a vote of 96 to nothing. We are waging war on this virus using every financial, scientific, medical, pharmaceutical, and military resource to halt its spread and protect our citizens. I want to express our tremendous thanks to the American people for continuing to practice social distancing like you people are practicing right here. I don't know, this room may never be the same. Maintaining good hygiene and follow government guidelines. Vice President Pence lifts up that card every time. And it's not very complicated, but hopefully you can do that. And your commitment will make all the difference in the world, and that's one of the big ones will be, for a while, stay home. Just relax, stay home. Making a lot of progress. As we continue to gather more information and accelerate the testing, where we're doing record numbers of tests now, far more than any other country has done. I told you yesterday, 8 days here, because you heard so much about South Korea. The media kept talking about South Korea, South Korea. We have a great relationship with President Moon in South Korea. But when I hear so much about South Korea, so in 8 days, we do more testing than they did in 8 weeks. And it's a very highly sophisticated test. We'll be able to deploy even more data-driven and targeted approaches to slow the ultimately, it's a very devastating thing, but we will vanquish this virus, and it's a lot of progress has been made. That's why earlier today I sent a letter to America's governors describing how we will be using the data to update existing guidance on social distancing, which will be developed in close coordination with our nation's public health officials and scientists. Because of the sacrifices of our great doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals, the brilliance of our scientists and researchers, and the goodness and generosity of our people, I know that we will achieve victory and quickly return to the path of exceptional health, safety, and prosperity for all of our citizens. We have to get back to work. Our people want to work. They want to go back. They have to go back. And we're going to be talking about dates. We're going to be talking with a lot of great professionals. But this is a country that was built on getting it done. And our people want to go back to work. I'm hearing it loud and clear from everybody. So we'll see what happens. We're going to have a lot more information early next week, and we'll be reporting that back. But I just want to leave it with you. We have to go back. This is the United States of America. They don't want to sit around and wait, and they'll be practicing. And by the way, a lot of people misinterpret when I say go back. They're going to be practicing as much as you can, social distancing and washing your hands and not shaking hands and all of the things that we talk about so much, but they have to go back to work. Our country has to go back. Our country is based on that. And I think it's going to happen pretty quickly. A lot of progress is made, but we got to go back to work. We may take sections of our country, we may take large sections of our country that aren't so seriously affected, and we may do it that way, but we've got to start the process pretty soon. So we'll be talking to you a little bit more about that next week. And with that, if you have any questions, you could ask, and then I'm going to have Vice President stay behind, and he's going to take questions and also introduce some of the people. You could ask them some questions. John, please.
Mr. President, okay. Unemployment numbers out today, 3.3 million.
Yeah.
I take it not a surprise.
No, not at all.
But still a staggering number.
Oh,
I'm wondering about your perspective on that.
Well, it's nobody's fault, certainly not in this country. Nobody's fault. We got very lucky when we made a decision not to allow people in from China at a very early date. I say that because some people don't want to accept it, but this was a great decision made by our country. Or there's the numbers that you're talking about. We're a big country. That'd be far greater, far bigger. So when I heard the number, I heard it could be 6 million, could be 7 million. It's 3.3 or 3.2. But it's a lot of jobs. But I think we'll come back very strong. The sooner we get back to work, every day that we stay out, it gets harder to bring it back very quickly. And our people don't want to stay out. So I know those numbers, John, but I think you'll see a very fast turnaround once we have a victory over the hidden enemy, as I say. It's a hidden enemy. Sometimes a hidden enemy is a lot tougher than somebody that stares you in the face, right? So we'll see what happens. But, they're fully expected numbers, at least. Steve, please.
There's a U.S. proposal to deploy some troops along the Canadian border.
Yeah.
And Prime Minister Trudeau is complaining about that. Why is that necessary?
Well, we have very strong deployments on the southern border, as you know, with Mexico, and we had some troops up in Canada, but I'll find out about that. I guess it's equal justice to a certain extent. But in Canada, we do have troops along the border. We have a lot of things coming in from Canada. We have trade, some illegal trade that we don't like. We have very strong sanctions on some. We have very strong tariffs on dumping steel. And we don't like steel coming through our border that's been dumped in Canada so they can avoid the tariff. I charge a lot of tariff for the steel. And it's been great for our steel companies because now they can really go. You look at what's happened with steel. It's been pretty incredible. But we've taken in billions and billions of dollars in tariffs on steel. And much of it comes in from China, but they can come through the Canadian border too. So we're always watching for that.
The numbers correctly, the United States now has surpassed China as the country with the highest number of virus cases. Does this surprise you at all? Is it following a predictable trajectory?
No, I think it's a tribute to our testing. Number one, you don't know what the numbers are in China. China tells you numbers, and I'm speaking to President Xi tonight, I believe, and we'll have a good conversation, I'm sure. But you just don't know, what are the numbers. But I think it's a tribute to the testing. We're testing tremendous numbers of people. And every day, the way the system works, and I want to thank especially Roche has been fantastic, great company. They've done a tremendous amount. Deborah was telling me before that they've really stepped up to the plate and done great, as have other of the companies, but it seems that they're really doing it particularly well. We'll see what happens there. But it's a tribute to the amount of testing that we're doing. We're doing tremendous testing. And I'm sure you're not able to tell what China is testing or not testing. And I think that's a little hard.
Yeah, Mr. President, on the 3.3 jobless claims, you just suggested it could 6 to 7 million. A lot of those workers...
No, I didn't say that. No, you're wrong. I didn't say that. I said some people were projecting that it would be 6 or 7, and it's, I believe, 3.3.
Came in at 3.3. Yeah. Millions of Americans out of work. Some of them will be losing their insurance. What's your plan to make sure, through no fault of your own, as you just mentioned, that they stay insured? Are you willing to plus up the subsidies for some of the exchanges under Obamacare, expand Medicaid? What's being considered?
The things I just read to you are being considered, and other things are being considered. People are going to be getting big checks, and it's not their fault. What happened to them is not their fault. So we're doing a lot of different things on health insurance. We have meetings on it today. We're taking care of our people. This is not their fault, what happened, and we're taking care. We're starting off by sending them very big checks. I think for a family of 4, it's about $3,000. And we're taking care of our people. We're taking care of our workers. This was not you know, as I say, this was not a financial crisis. This was a health crisis, a medical crisis. We're going to take care of our people. Please. Yeah.
That's the president there holding the task force media briefing that seems to be happening almost daily now, giving an update on the national response to this crisis. We want to get back to local news now. We're going to break away from that and get you some other updates.
Right, so after months on Mauna Kea, TMT opponents are now leaving because of the coronavirus threat.
It is necessary and prudent that active participation here at Pu'uhuluhulu be temporarily suspended.
The opponents say they remain focused on protecting Mauna Kea and will return if there is a need to do so.
All right, I want to show you this picture, and for our podcast listeners, I'm going to describe it to you. This is a familiar scene we're also seeing. This is Costco in Iwilei. You know, this scene sort of had people get a little freaked out in regards to our shipping and supplies, but experts and officials are all saying we are fine. The shipping industry leaders are reassuring the public that the state's ports will remain open. Our own Keahi Tucker did a story last night. He filed this report. Let's listen to what it had to say.
Honolulu Harbor brought in 3 container ships in the past 4 days. 2 more are coming in tonight, and then more over the weekend, which means there's plenty of food and toilet paper for everyone.
So there's really no need to panic when it comes to buying groceries and supplies.
Matson, Pasha, and Young Brothers are all still operating on regular schedules with routine mainland service and more than 20 inter-island shipments a week. Even as some store shelves are stripped bare, rumors of potential harbor closures are unfounded.
There's no anticipated closures of any commercial port here in Hawaii.
But there are risks within the industry.
If we lose the workers to tie the boats up, the ships up rather, we wouldn't be able, everything will fall apart.
Turns out many of Honolulu's tugboat workers don't live on Oahu or even in Hawaii. They fly in for their shifts. And because they're considered essential, they are exempt from Hawaii's new 14-day quarantine.
They're essentially self-quarantined before they get on the plane. There's nobody on the plane these days, so they can pretty safely come over here and get on the boat. They need to be very serious about this.
And of course, both tugboat operators and stevedores are all practicing social distancing these days. The state says 3 more cruise ships are also heading into port soon for fuel and provisions, but they have no passengers on board. At Honolulu Harbor, I'm Keahi Tucker, Hawaii News Now.
And in other news, Honolulu police have launched a murder investigation this morning after a 24-year-old woman and a 6-month-old baby were found dead at an apartment complex in Ewa Beach. First responders were called to the Sunrise apartment complex on Hanapo'uli Circle at around 12:45 a.m. No further details have been provided, but Honolulu police say the murder is related to a head-on crash that also happened early this morning in Wahiawa. According to EMS, a man and woman, both in their 20s, were seriously injured after the crash on Kunia Road. EMS said one of the vehicles clipped the other.
All right, we're going to get back to the coronavirus news. In this next story, you actually filed this yesterday. Got extreme reaction on both our Facebook page, our social medias, and our new Facebook group. What was going on there?
Right, so we found a mainland family who took advantage of the cheap airfares because of the coronavirus pandemic, and they actually ended up being victimized for it.
The Shepherd family of Illinois told us they could never afford to come to Hawaii. So when they saw the airfares drop, they jumped on the chance for a once-in-a-lifetime trip. But they never imagined they would be attacked for it, leaving their daughters on the side of the road in tears at Kapiolani Park. The girl's father tells us a man slashed their tire and accused them of trying to spread the coronavirus.
He started screaming and yelling about we're not from here, that we need to leave. I'm not from here, that I need to get the F out, and with this pandemic going on, and we had traveled over here and trying to spread the COVID-19, I guess. Then he started to back up and with his door open and tried to hit me, and then he turned in and tried to back up and ram me with his truck, and then finally he decided to take off.
No one was injured. Police were nearby and immediately started searching for the suspect. The Shepherds say they have not heard back on whether he was caught. Now, the family says none of them have symptoms and they are being very careful to practice social distancing while in Hawaii.
Man, It's not the aloha you expect.
No,
right
absolutely not. I mean, not the best decision by the family to come here, but still, I mean, come on.
I know, and now, as of today, that new quarantine order, they couldn't even be in the park if they did arrive here today.
Right. And actually, after I posted that story on my social media, I got lots of responses from people who wanted to get in contact with that family and just, show them some aloha and what Hawaii's really about, not that.
That's what I like to hear. But, this is not the only place where people are still out and about when they're not supposed to be. Let's take you over to Japan.
Yeah, so Japan reported 98 new infections today, the biggest single-day spike in cases for the country. And despite the government's advice to stay inside, crowds continue to gather for the country's iconic cherry blossom season. Look how beautiful those blooms are.
That's
how
hard
many
to
people
resist.
there. Yeah. But Tokyo officials are considering a possible citywide lockdown to keep people indoors.
All right, we'll have to see how that develops there. We also want to talk about some other international news. Mexico, it is getting some criticism there, although President Trump in that press conference just gave great praise to the Mexican president. Others disagree. Matt Rivers from CNN just filed this report and will explain.
Well, though he has changed his tone over the last several days, there's a lot of concern here in Mexico that perhaps the damage has already been done by Mexican President Lopez Obrador. Just consider this video taken 5 days ago, posted to the president's Twitter account. 5 days ago, most, if not all, world leaders should have been aware that this outbreak of this coronavirus is extremely serious. It's very contagious. And yet here is the president standing in the middle of a group of children playing instruments. A few days earlier, he was at a press conference. He was asked by reporters about this virus, and he held up 2 amulets and said those amulets, in conjunction with his honesty and his inability to become corrupt, would help protect him from this virus. Now, over the last several days, the number of positive cases here in Mexico has nearly doubled. As a result, the federal government has taken further action. They've closed some schools, they've shuttered certain businesses, they've encouraged people to stay at home. But, there are still a lot of people that remain out on the street. One of the world's worst country outbreaks right now in the United States, just north of Mexico's northern border, is going on right now. And as a result, you have many people here in Mexico who would say that the president's actions over the last several days have been nothing short of irresponsible. Meanwhile, in Brazil, that country's president, Jair Bolsonaro, gave a 4.5-minute address to his country on Tuesday night, where he said that the media was helping fuel this crisis by spreading hysteria and fear. And he also said that he criticized certain local governors in states across Brazil for actually taking preventative measures like closing down businesses, enforcing stay-at-home orders, closing down schools. He specifically said that if the threat to this virus, in his words, was greatest to people over age 60, then the schools should be open at this point. And this all comes as Brazil is the leading country in Latin America in terms of number of positive cases, nearly 2,500 at this point. They also have the most deaths in this region, and yet Brazil's president wants his citizens to believe that this crisis is being fueled by the media and by his political enemies, and not by a legitimately very contagious, deadly virus. Matt Rivers, CNN in Mexico City.
All right, thanks, Matt, for that report. We're taking you outside via our live traffic cameras that are coming. This feed's coming into our digital center. Showing you these roadways right now just because we've gotten some reports into our newsroom that people are actually getting citations breaking that stay-at-home order, and they're going out and about as they're not actually essential workers, and that fine is $5,000. We have not confirmed those reports, but we're seeing them on social medias. I actually posted on our Facebook group, the Coronavirus Hub. You can find it just by searching that exact question. I want to know if you guys have experienced that or have known anyone who has. But while we're outside, let's get a check of the weather. Here's Guy Hoggy.
How's it on this Thursday? I'm Guy Hoggy with your HawaiiNewsNow.com forecast. A wind advisory remains posted for Maui County and the Big Island. These areas could get gusts upwards of 50 miles an hour today, so there's still a possibility for spotty power outages in those areas. Across the state, though, the winds will be running at breezy levels, especially windy, of course, from Maui and parts of the Big Island, and these winds will hold firm through tomorrow. Now, this morning, we're not seeing a whole lot of rain, but we got a lot of cloud cover from a disturbance down to the south. So it's going to be a little bit cloudy today, even though we aren't going to see a whole lot of rain. We will see a few passing showers throughout the day, mainly for those windward and Mauka neighborhoods. Surf still elevated, still big, still dangerous for east shores, under a high surf advisory. The south swell is on the way down, but it's still pretty good size. Now keep in mind that even though you can and are allowed to go out surfing, it's still a dangerous situation because there are fewer lifeguards patrolling the waters. So if you're unfamiliar with the ocean or large surf for that matter, stay out because it's a dangerous situation, especially for those who aren't familiar with the ocean. So again, we've got typical blustery conditions today, very windy for parts of the state. And then on Friday, the winds kind of back off a little bit, but more rain is developing for the weekend. In fact, Saturday and Sunday, we could get some heavy rain with some thunderstorms. Keep it here on Hawaii News Now. We'll have all your severe weather updates.
All right, there's so many people without work out there right now, as we just saw in those unemployment numbers. Those jobless claims are mounting. But some of those people who are out of work are actually turning to help nonprofits. Our own Lynn Kawano is going to show us what folks are doing to help out.
Lanakila Meals on Wheels lost about half of their volunteers, or regular volunteers. That's 100 of the 200. Most retirees. Understandably, they don't want to be out during the pandemic. Hawaiian Airlines employees who are now working from home are making time to help sort and pack kits for the Meals on Wheels program.
As long as they need us and we're not in the way, we are here to help.
How many more do we need, Joe?
Neil Yamamoto is not able to work during the shutdown.
I work at the Battleship Missouri Memorial as our education outreach coordinator.
The memorial is closed, so he's adding days to volunteer with Meals on Wheels.
People that are now working from home, maybe even some folks that have been laid off from their jobs and so they're not working right now. Even people that are connected with the school system because the schools are closed. They're coming in to help us because they're available.
20 other new volunteers showed up to make deliveries Wednesday. The agency appreciates the additional assistance since they've ramped up services to those who need it.
Meals on Wheels is still taking new orders, mostly homebound seniors or those with disabilities who are now choosing to shelter in place. I'm Lynn Kawano, Hawaii News Now.
Now that's what I like to see in a time like this. That is aloha we were talking about right there. Speaking of food, we got to talk about McDonald's actually, because for you Mickey D's lovers, they're making some more changes. They've already closed down all the indoor seating. We told you about that. Now they're getting rid of all-day breakfast. That's to simplify things for the kitchen. Sure, they're dealing with like a lack of workers there, like so many other businesses are that are still doing to-go orders. They said this is only temporary. It'll go back once this is all over. You can still get your hot cakes. That's my favorite McDonald's breakfast option, or your McGriddle, which I've talked about before. A lot of calories in that sucker. Not my favorite.
Can't think about that, Jonathan.
I know. But I you know what? I put you on the spot here, but thank you for posting on your Instagram, all the different takeout options.
Oh, yeah,
your story's
absolutely.
full of them, and I've gotten some good ideas. So
Yep,
thank you for that.
Like almost 200 places doing takeout.
That's amazing that people are having to convert to that, but you know, the entrepreneurial spirit lives on. That's for sure. All right, some other news close to your heart. Crocs.
So we told you yesterday that Starbucks is offering healthcare workers a free cup of coffee. Well, Crocs is offering free stuff to those on the front lines too. So healthcare employees can get a free pair of shoes from Crocs. All they have to do is go to crocs.com to place their order. Shipping is free too. So the website opens every day at noon Eastern time, and it stays open until the day's allotment has been fulfilled. And then the next day it reopens again at noon. So the company is also donating up to 100,000 pairs of shoes to select hospitals and medical facilities across the country.
Show everyone your Crocs.
Yeah. I've personally never owned a pair of Crocs, but
Hey,
I heard they're comfortable.
They're comfortable. My dad loves his Crocs, that's for sure. And they gotta be good for people who are on their feet all day, like the nurses and healthcare workers who really, and they're easy to clean, so there's definitely a benefit for them, although they are a little clunky. You know?
Yeah, I'm a Robo-Slippers kind of girl, but...
Yeah, locals. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us here on This Is Now today. We do have some press conferences coming up today. We're getting word that the governor and Josh Green are actually going to hold a press conference together. We'll see how that all shapes out, folks. And then don't forget, we have our town hall tonight on all our platforms, digital and TV. That's KGMB, K5, KHNN, town hall with all sorts of experts. We're asking you to ask some questions, so go to our group. That's the Coronavirus Hub. You can write your question or send us a video, and we'll ask those experts. See ya later, folks.